Hello and welcome into Brewcast for Maize and Brew on the SB Nation Podcast Network. I am Luke Ghiardi, joined tonight by Scotty White as we are live with you Monday, November 1st, as we head into Tuesday, November 2nd. We're live on the Maize and Brew YouTube channel right now. If you're listening on the podcast, you can catch us every Monday night about 7:30 doing the live stream recording of Brewcast. If you're with us live right now on Maize and Brew, David Kinani. I apologize if I screwed that up, man, but he said I'm super excited for this live stream. Excited is one way to put it, I guess. We'll see about that. But Scotty White, man, taking over. Obviously, Steven has moved on to another opportunity. Scotty with me here tonight, contributor at Maize and Brew. He's with us on the Pick'em podcast as well. Scotty, what's going on, man? Introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about you.
What's up, guys? First off, I want to give David a shout out. That's one of my roommates. Good to see he's watching the show. Just started here at Maize and Brew this year. This is my first season. Currently in my senior year at U of M. An unfortunate week to be on the show for the first time following the first loss, but I am still excited to talk about the game because I need to vent about it, like you said earlier, Luke.
Yeah, this is going to be might be a bit of a venting session here. We'll see. We're going to talk about the game. Yeah. Obviously, Saturday, we're going to look ahead to what's at stake. GDRCO, big thanks to you for checking in from Westminster, Colorado. I love it, man. So I guess, Scotty, we'll go ahead and jump right into it. First, before we get into the game, though, man, you were in East Lansing. You were over there for the game. What was the atmosphere like that day, man? It looked like a wild, wild time.
It was, yeah. I mean, the day started early, 5:30 a.m., got up, and yeah, everybody was already out on the streets. I went to the game my freshman year, last 2018 when we played in East Lansing. Definitely a little more a ruckus this time around. Everybody was, walking down the street. Everybody, I guess, to every Michigan fan is saying, "Go Green." And yeah, it was frustrating. Like my dad told me, he said, I don't know why you went there. Like you knew it would not be a good time. And it really wasn't, honestly. It still was a good atmosphere though. But yeah, it feels good to be back in Ann Arbor. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Unfortunately, we're talking about a loss here instead of a win, which is what it looked like it was going to be for a little bit of that game, probably a good portion of that game, to be quite honest with you. But obviously, Michigan falls 37-33 in East Lansing on Saturday. The Paul Bunyan stays in East Lansing, and I don't know, man. I don't know what to make of this game because obviously it's Zane Jones, he said he was verbally assaulted every 10 feet. Sounds about right.
Yeah, I was with him. So yeah. Another one of my roommates there. Yeah. It wasn't. He got called a very mean name for just carrying a frozen pizza. Someone said that pizza's fake and called him a very mean name. We were getting verbally assaulted quite often.
Jesus, man. Well, yeah. It probably would have been easier to muster if Michigan comes away with a victory in that one. But, first thoughts, on the game. Obviously, Michigan held a 16-point lead in the second half. Yeah. Looked like the thing could have been over. Turning point of the game, at least for me, was Michigan State converting a really tough fourth down. Beautiful pass from Peyton Thorne. Dax Hill got beat on that fourth down, set up that touchdown to get him back within 8 after the 2-point conversion. But at the end of the day, Michigan didn't make the plays that they needed to down the stretch to come away with a win. What were your thoughts on this game, Scotty?
Yeah, that fourth down was, you got to think if Michigan gets a stop on that play, they win the game. That was getting late into the third quarter, getting the ball back up 16. But yeah, like the players and coaches were preaching last week, like it comes down to composure, execution, and unfortunately, it didn't happen in the end. The fumble from McCarthy and Blake on that exchange was killer. Got the ball up 3, just had a great kick return. I'm thinking, all right, punch it in here. Michigan's that's game, up by 10.
Yep.
I was also surprised with the call on 3rd and 3 before the fourth down turnover on the second to last possession for Michigan. They went with a deep ball on 3rd and 3. Kind of thought they should have ran it there. You're going to be going for it if it's fourth down. Chances are you're going to either get a first down or get it to 1 or 2 yards on the 4th down play to maybe set up just like a QB sneak or something. So I was kind of surprised with that play call too. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I thought there were some bad calls in the game, but I mean, 16-point lead in the second half, gotta close that out.
By the way, on that play, I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this. Fox certainly made zero note of this, which blows my mind. Scotty, I know you were there, so you probably didn't know from inside there either. JJ McCarthy was in because Cade McNamara was actually in the medical tent.
Yeah, I did not hear anything about that either.
I could not. First of all, that Fox broadcast was atrocious.
Mhm.
It was an absolute train wreck, unfortunate and unbecoming of what that game should have been. But yeah, for us to not know, because I was with everyone else. I'm like, look, JJ just fumbled on the previous possession down there, and Michigan got lucky to come away with 3 even.
Yeah.
What is he doing back out there? Cade's playing an incredible game, but hey, if McNamara was working through something, this is a guy that you've been setting up for this moment for quite a long time. Just something happened on the exchange, but it wasn't like the coaches were like, we're going to go with JJ here instead of Cade. Cade was working through something. So I think that needs to be put out there for anyone that didn't understand that was a situation.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about that until like today.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I think it was per the Michigan Football Network. Jim Brandsander and company. That's the only way anyone knew. I actually got a text during the game because I felt the same way as everyone else. And everyone's like, yeah, apparently Cade's in the medical tent. I'm like, why would Fox not mention anything about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I was nervous when he came out too, and I was like, okay, he just fumbled. But I've got trust that he's gonna not make that mistake again. And then very first play, that play was disastrous. Obviously.
And got to show, I think, a lot of love to Cade McNamara. Just go over the positives of this game real quick. Cade McNamara, that was the best game he's played as Michigan Wolverine, no 100%. Question. One of the best games quarterbacks played at Michigan. I know it came in a loss, which is super unfortunate, but I mean, you stack some of Shea's best games, some of Denard's best games, Jake Rudock, whoever you can name. This game from Cade McNamara was special.
Yeah. Definitely. I was like watching, I don't want to watch the bad plays, but I've been trying to find some of the good highlights. And I think Jim mentioned it in the press conference today too. One of his throws, he's like falling back as he has pressure in his face and throws perfect pass to all coming across the middle. And I think it was 3rd and long too. Really good throws. And then his last touchdown pass too, I was really impressed with. He had a lot of really impressive throws. And I think he had 383 yards. And I thought that was going to be huge, was getting those plays to the air because Michigan State just doesn't have a good passing defense. I thought I was extremely impressed with Cade.
Yeah, 406 total passing yards between Cade and JJ. Obviously, JJ with the touchdown pass, 8.5 yards per pass. Andrell Anthony, welcome. Yeah. Welcome, Andrell Anthony, man. I mean, awesome. As a true freshman, to be able to come in there, and he got limited reps last week. We saw him against Northwestern a little bit. We were excited about his progress. I didn't expect Andrell Anthony to introduce himself like that on Saturday.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, first drive of the game, 93-yard touchdown pass to the kid from East Lansing. At that point, I'm thinking Michigan might run away with things. But yeah, I mean, huge game. So I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of him throughout the rest of the season.
CB Williams asks, what do y'all think about the officials? So here's my thing on what we saw Saturday. I actually didn't have a huge problem with the on-field officiating. I thought there were a couple missed calls both ways. I thought there was a pretty blatant defensive pass interference on that 4th down, not called on Cornelius Johnson. I thought AJ Henning got interfered with on the possession before. When they took a shot at the end zone. My beef is with the replay officials, more so than anything by far, because obviously the strip sack fumble, there was absolutely no reason to overturn that. Not even a lick of evidence that was even close. I don't care what anyone says. The ball was starting to move as soon as Peyton Thorne got hit. I personally thought the first touchdown from Kenneth Walker, when you look at it, the ball as he's holding it is behind his foot and starting to come loose as the foot is touching the goal line, which leads me to believe that the ball had not quite crossed the goal line just yet. The replay officials, all of them, it was 5, 6, or 7 replays in that game, and not a single one of them went Michigan's way. And the logic was inconsistent between each and every one of them. So my biggest pet peeve, my biggest issue was with the replay officials in this game.
Yeah, I agree. The replays were not great, especially the Hutchinson touchdown. I mean, you got to go with the call on the field there. There was no angle that could overturn that, and it has to be 100% conclusive evidence to overturn a call. Absolutely no reason that should be overturned. Yeah, like you said, a couple missed calls, but yeah, the replays were bad. And another play that I just didn't, also on the Kenneth Walker fumble, I never saw like a angle like across the goal line. You would,
which is weird,
right?
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be that's the best angle you can see for a ball going across the plane. So I don't know why I never saw that angle being used. But also on one of Michigan State's, I just never got a good look at this, so I'm curious if you did. On one of the 2-point conversions, they came down with it, and I don't remember who it was, but the Michigan defender.
It was DJ Turner.
Yeah, he comes away with it.
Yeah,
and I didn't really.
I looked at that. I think that was Reed. They actually went and reviewed, and they confirmed it. And looking on replay, looked like Reed got 2 feet down. He had control, and DJ after like 2 more steps, he was able to rip it away. I didn't have a problem with that one. I thought that was a pretty good call.
Yeah, I was curious about that one because I never really saw a good replay of it. So, but yeah,
you make a good point here, Scotty. Is that okay? The first replay of the game is Kenneth Walker's touchdown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, it's close. They couldn't find enough evidence to overturn it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's the precedent that you set, and that is what the rule is, right? Like that you need confirmation. You need absolute evidence to overturn it. So I had no problem with it. But then you do the thing where you overturn the strip sack fumble with no clear-cut evidence. Then on the one possession, I think it was Reed again. He made the catch. It was a short pass. Remember, he had to come back for it. You couldn't tell. His gloves, first of all, matched the exact color of the grass.
Yes.
So you could not tell if he got both hands under that football. It was very close.
Yeah.
Again, not enough evidence to overturn, yet they overturned. That is my problem, is the logical inconsistencies from replay to replay.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing with the refs. I was just talking to my dad about this. Consistency. If they're gonna like, I've noticed there seem to be some misholding calls on Hutch.
That's
happens every week.
They miss about 5 a game on him.
Yeah. And it just comes down to consistency. I mean, you can't do that for, like you said, the catch that Reed had and the fumble at the goal line for Walker. You can't do that, but then overturn Hutchinson's. I mean, there's just no evidence for that. Got to be consistent.
So, and it's frustrating. And look, I get it. There's a lot of people that are like, you can't blame the refs, and I agree. Michigan had their chances to win this
100%,
game,
100%.
But I'm also on the camp that I firmly believe that officiating and replay has an impact on the game, which of course it does. It's illogical to think otherwise here. So I think that's all part of it. And hey, Michigan State, they caught the brakes in this game. Sometimes you need to catch some breaks to win a game like this. It was an all-out war out there.
It was.
And, Michigan State, they were able to capitalize on it a little bit, whereas, Michigan couldn't quite get over that. And you got to give State credit for that. But I also think, I guess my silver lining takeaway from this game, though, right, is that, Michigan made enough plays to win this game. And when I say that, I mean, with the strip sack fumble, obviously Michigan ends up with more points. That's a play that happened. It's not a hypothetical play. It happened. It got inexplicably overturned. Obviously Michigan doesn't get credit for the win, but they played good enough to win, I guess is my point. They didn't go out there and lay an egg in a rivalry game. You know what I'm saying? We've seen that how many times under Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
So I think there's some reason for optimism here, but obviously the not finishing, man, this continues to be a problem.
It really does. And I mean, the season is not over. I mean, we got 4 more games. Michigan, you got to think Ohio State's going to beat Michigan State. Ohio State looks like clearly the best team in the Big Ten right now. Michigan State still plays Penn State too. They play at Purdue. That's going to be a tough game too. Only 2.5-point favorites in that one. So you got to think that Michigan State's going to lose at least one. Michigan needs them to lose two. So it very well could end up coming down to that game against Ohio State.
Well, that's the thing too, is you technically, so the scenario is there. That's why this season is far from lost.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everyone wants to jump ship. Michigan's still in the top 10.
Mhm.
And I saw someone mention it. They said, you know, we asked about what is, you know, the rest of the season outlook for Michigan. They said not the college football playoff. That's not necessarily true.
They can still
Obviously, Michigan is going to need to beat Ohio State, but they were at anyway. If Michigan wins this game on Saturday, now Michigan State controls their own destiny. Don't get me wrong. If they win out, they're going to Indy and they got a shot at the college football playoff. But if Ohio State beats Penn State or Michigan State, this game Saturday ultimately still is going to come down, you know, to Ohio State. If Michigan wins that game Saturday, the Penn State game doesn't mean as much because you still need to beat Ohio State down the road anyway. If Ohio State beats Michigan State, if Michigan somehow beats Ohio State this year, all three end with, you know, one loss in the conference. Ohio State's going to have two losses, and by that time, Michigan will have run the table. Michigan State will have a late loss. There's a good chance Michigan is ranked a little bit higher than Michigan State. There's a good chance Michigan would get the nod to go to Indy in a three-way tie for the Big Ten East. Now, this is all hypothetical and sounds like a pipe dream, but I'm just laying out the potential scenario of what we could see. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's still a ton to play for this season.
100%, yeah. I mean, 11-1. Ohio State is the big rivalry, you know. Harbaugh he's beaten Michigan State. Yeah, he hasn't beaten Tucker. Those are games that Michigan needs to win. But Ohio State's still the big one, you know. And I don't know if you ever, and I don't really like to pay too much attention to these because, you know, they aren't right. But I just noticed, and I thought it was weird on the ESPN college football playoff predictor today. I saw that Michigan still has a higher percentage in there, whatever they use, to figure out percentages to make the playoff. But Michigan was at 20% and Michigan State was at 16%. But yeah, there's a ton still to play for. I think that all of Michigan's goals of the season can still be achieved.
I 100% agree. And that's if you win out, does this game still sting? Yeah, but does it sting a whole hell of a lot less? Also, yes. You know, like, I mean, it's still there. Now, if you finish 10-2 and you got two losses to Michigan State and Ohio State, and you end up going to the Capital One Bowl or whatever, like, it was a great season given expectations. But your two losses to Michigan State and Ohio State, that's not a lot of fun.
And that's the thing. You tell people at the beginning of the year that Michigan goes 10-2. I think most people would be happy. But then once you start the season 7-0, up to number 6 in the country, those expectations are back to being sky high. And yeah, now if Michigan goes 10-2 with another loss to Ohio State, I don't think anybody's going to say that this was a successful season.
Which obviously, like, if you go back to early before September and you say 10-2 but lost to Michigan State, Ohio State, half the people are going to be like, no, that still sucks. But there's a good, you know, chunk of the half that's like, no, that would be kind of awesome because I think this team's going to win 5 or 6 games.
Right. And also at the beginning of the season, nobody saw Michigan State being a good team. So if I was told at the beginning of the year Michigan was going to lose to Michigan State, I would be thinking that Michigan would be losing to a 3 or 4 win team. But I mean, going into Michigan State as top 10 team, obviously, is not an easy game.
I want to highlight this one by Guadalupe Gonzalez. Said, I'm impressed by how they didn't hang their head after this loss. That alone gives me confidence that we can finish strong. Hopefully MSU loses along the way as well. I got to agree. I've liked kind of what I've seen in the aftermath here from the coaches and the players. There's doesn't seem to be a lot of sulking. There seems to be maybe a little extra, you know, motivation moving forward. Now, obviously, the proof's going to be in the pudding Saturday night when they take on Indiana. But you know, they're talking. They had a players only meeting here today, third one of the season, apparently, according to Mike Sanders still. They are, and we've said all along, right, Scotty, that this team kind of does feel different. Obviously, didn't get the job done on Saturday, but from a mental perspective here, this team does feel different. And if they come out and they are able to dominate Indiana on Saturday night, you might get me to start believing a little bit again.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at other great teams in the past, and losses happen. And we kind of talked a lot about how Michigan was responding to adversity in game, against Wisconsin, tough road environment, kind of the end of the first half, that late touchdown, that was some adversity. Nebraska, obviously, tons of adversity faced in that. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how they come back after a loss. And Indiana is always a team that gives Michigan a good fight. And I think
And always in November, man.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they're better. They're better than their record indicates this year. And we were talking on the Pick'em podcast a couple weeks ago just about how tough that schedule is. They've got like 4 top 10 losses. Yeah, I mean, they've got it's we're gonna find out a lot again. I think we feel like we've said that a lot this year, but we will find out a lot about the team. They lost a game, so we'll see how they can respond.
And in the past, it's been noted many times under Jim Harbaugh that November has just not been a good month for him. Yeah. And this quite honestly needs to be his strongest November since he's been here.
I think that Penn State game is really big. If Michigan loses that one and Ohio State and goes 9-3, then I mean, who did Michigan have any good wins if that happens? And even Penn State's 5-3. So gotta win.
Well, I mean, quite honestly, who knows? Wisconsin might be the team to come out of the West with what's going on over on that side.
It might come down to that Wisconsin-Minnesota game.
It's kind of starting to look that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously that would end up being a good win for them, but got to win that Penn State game. That's the marquee one now, right? Like that one wouldn't have really even mattered if Michigan wins this game Saturday, if you given that they take care of business against Indiana and Maryland.
Yeah.
But that game, the Penn State game would have ultimately not mattered at all. Yeah. If Michigan gets this win on Saturday, that now the margin of error is completely gone on this season for this team.
Yep. Got to win out now.
Got to win out, man. So like we said, and I see a lot of people talking about it. I'm actually impressed with the comments here, and I'm a little bit surprised. I thought we were going to get a whole lot more doom and gloom here tonight than we've had, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right here. Also, let's talk about this as well. This is true.
I was going to say that was a major difference in the game.
GDRCO, please God, no more field goals. I love Jake Moody, but come the F on. Let's finish a drive. And my God, man, I couldn't agree more with that. Field goals, 5 of them on Saturday?
4 or 5. That was the
literally just score one more touchdown.
That was the difference in the game. Michigan State got down there and they scored a touchdown every time.
Yep.
And Michigan, like you said, I love Jake Moody. It's great having a kicker like Jake Moody because he's extremely consistent. And he's a great kicker. But gotta finish out those drives. That really ended up being the difference in the game. Michigan State, I think, had, I want to say 5 or 7 punts. I don't remember exactly what it was. We had 2. Michigan got down there and they just couldn't finish it off, and Michigan State did.
Yeah, and this has been a problem for Michigan this year. I don't know exactly what happens in the red zone. I've been watching a lot of Steven's videos and Space Coyotes videos, trying to figure out exactly what's going wrong in the red zone. I don't know if it's play calling, might be execution, maybe it's a lack of ingenuity. I'm not really sure. It might be a combination of all of those things, but it has to get corrected. At the end of the day, it has to.
Yeah, this game felt a lot like the 2017 season, where that was a major struggle, just getting down into the red zone seemingly every possession, just field goals. And that's the thing. In the first quarter, Michigan should have been up 21-0.
Yeah.
If Blake Cora makes that catch, he looked like he had a lot of space. And then the field goal to make it 10-0. There's the bad holding call, obviously derailed the hopes of that. I think that would have set up first and goal like the 5. Got to think they would have been able to punch it in from there. I mean, it seemed like Michigan was dominating the game in the first quarter, and then all of a sudden it's 13-7. Michigan State's got the ball and takes the lead right after that. There were a lot of chances to put the game away that Michigan just didn't capitalize on.
Yeah, 100%. And you go back and you look at some of the missed opportunities. You talked about it. The one to Corum was huge. That was kind of a really bad holding call on Andrell Anthony, I thought. And that's the thing too, man. Those are the breaks in the game that we talk about. Again, it's not that officiating necessarily decides the game, but it is absolutely a
big
factor.
in
And a
this
little
game.
ticky-tack call like that goes from 1st and 5 to, 1st and goal from the 20 instead.
Right. And that 4-point swing ends up being the difference in the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, but in all fairness, again, Michigan had a 16-point lead.
Yeah. No,
in the
the
second
refs
half.
are not to blame for the loss. Like, man, Michigan blew it.
Yeah, they really did. And again, now let's talk about Tyler Budash here. He said, "Let's be 100 for a second. Does Michigan have any chance at beating Ohio State?" And just looking back on this game as a barometer, outgained Michigan State by 160 yards, 2 yards per play more than Michigan State in this game. Michigan, 8.5 yards per play. Michigan State, 6.5 yards per play. Cade McNamara, fantastic. We mentioned it. If Andrell Anthony keeps getting better, at the end of the day, I think there's a situation where Michigan can beat anyone. Would I pick Michigan to beat Ohio State? I'm obviously not. I mean, let's be. It is what it is at this point right now. But I think Michigan can play with just about anyone. But you got to clean up some things.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive substituting. I mean, that's the thing too. Is it always seems like on the road in a big game, the staff. I don't know if do you think they outsmart themselves, Scotty? Because how do you not call a timeout on that touchdown run from Michigan State?
No idea. Like, it happened. Stuff like that happens. But when it happens, I think it happened at least 3 times in that game. 3 to 5, I would say. I don't understand. I don't see that from Ohio State. So that needs to be cleaned up for sure. But yeah, I would say Michigan definitely has a chance. Michigan's a good team. They played well enough to win that game on Saturday. But yeah, the thing about Ohio State is, you watch them against Penn State on Saturday, and that looks like a team that Michigan can beat. Ohio State, they almost got it. Penn State had chances at the end to win that game. But the thing is Ohio State's going to play their best game against Michigan. Michigan State plays their best game against Michigan. So I wouldn't pick Michigan to win the game, but I think they definitely have a chance.
We also got this one from Tyler Budash. How did Michigan own MSU's offensive line so much, but let Walker run over them so much? So this was a problem. We talked with it about Steven for a little bit going into this game, is how the linebackers were going to perform in this matchup. And I thought it was one of the worst performances from a unit out there. Was the linebackers containing Kenneth Walker? Obviously, one of the long touchdown runs off to the right. I had no idea what Nakai Hill-Green was doing. He kind of just jumped into where a gap was filled already, and Walker was able to bounce it out and take it to the house. I mean, it's just little things like that. And we had concerns about the linebacking group coming into this year, and this was the game where it finally reared its ugly head.
Yeah, there were a lot of big plays for Walker that just missed tackles, and there were some where it was looking like he was going to have a loss of 2 yards, and then he busted for a 20-yard run. And that kind of stuff just can't happen. Way too many missed tackles on Walker. And, you got to give him credit. He's obviously a great running back, almost 200 yards, 5 touchdowns. But a lot of it was just plays that should have been made that weren't.
He was stopped. I mean, kind of like the Le'Veon Bell thing out there, except he was just like, he ran into the center of the line. There was nothing there. Michigan had it played perfectly, and he just – there was no contain, no gap fill, and he just bounced it out. And, he's tough to tackle in the open field. Give him all the credit in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that, again, that's a good point. Very disappointing, and as we're, trying to relive this thing, just so many missed opportunities. And that is, at the end of the day, though, that's kind of been the story of the Jim Harbaugh era at Michigan.
It really has been. And it's one of those games, and it's just like the 2016 Ohio State, 2017 Ohio State. There's so many plays that forever I just live in my head that I think about that Michigan could have made to win the game. So just another one of those games.
And well, the good news is back at it here this week, taking on Indiana, 7:30. Hate that.
Yeah,
quite a bit. What is the deal with the 7:30 start time against Indiana on Saturday?
Yeah. I have no idea, but I guess I'll be at the stadium in the press box until about 2 a.m. So looking forward to that.
That's brutal for you, for sure, man. I mean, It's not like should be a big primetime matchup. Like, look,
No idea.
Michigan has to dominate this game from
Yeah.
start to finish and
Yeah.
get back on track.
Mm-hmm. And I think that they will. They're going to come out with their hair on fire. I think. I still, maybe I'm too optimistic. I don't know, but I still really do think that the mentality of this team is different from years past. And I really think that, I remember the 2015 team after the very deflating loss to Michigan State on the trouble with the snap. It seemed they never really seemed to get back to how they looked before the Michigan State game. They played a Minnesota team the following week that they were far better than, and I mean that came down to a fourth and goal from the 2-inch line. Michigan did get the big stop to win 29-26. I think they had the 2 overtime win against Indiana that year too, and they just never really seemed to get back to where they were. But I really think that they're going to bounce back well after this loss. So I'm going to pick Michigan to cover on the Pick'em podcast this week. I'll tell you that.
Like, you bring up a good point, because we see it a lot, particularly in college athletics, when a team plays arguably their best game of the year, and Michigan probably, I think you could argue, is at least offensively it was their best game of the year. Defensively, maybe not.
Yeah.
But when you leave it all on the line, you play fantastically, and you still come up with a loss, the amount that it deflates you is really hard to quantify, and it's a true thing. And I'm glad to hear that they had the players meeting, because it's not like there's dysfunction or anything like that. They just need to remind themselves to get into the right headspace and go out. If they go out and play like they did against Michigan State, against Indiana, I think against Penn State and against Maryland, I think they should win all 3 of those games and have 1 loss going into Ohio State. Yeah. But you have to mentally get back on that plane, and that's a huge test that we're going to find out about Saturday night.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the defense, I think that was the best offensive game of the year. Besides got to get the red zone figured out. Defense has some cleaning up to do, but also I don't think Michigan's going to face another running back like Kenneth Walker. And I think Thorne didn't even.
That's no disrespect to Travion Williams. That's just, showing you how good Kenneth Walker is.
Yeah, really. I mean, I think he's going to be in New York for sure in December. I mean, he's a great running back. So yeah, I do really like Michigan's chances to be sitting at 10-1 going into that Ohio State game, set up a huge game.
Which, set yourself up for a potential letdown on that one. Right?
Yeah, I don't think I'll have my hopes up too much for that one.
But again, still a lot of season, a lot of things left to play for in this 100%. Season. I still liked what I saw. Obviously, a super disappointing result.
Yeah.
But I'm not ready to give up quite yet. I see we got some talk about Jim in the comments, and hey, I'm not going to berate you for it. I totally understand it. Yeah. I'm ready to see how the rest of the season plays out before I get there, but I definitely get where you guys are coming from in that regard, because again, at the end of the day, the rivalry games do mean a little bit more. Yeah. It is what it is. You can beat Washington and Wisconsin and get some nice wins, beat Penn State, but now you're below 500 against Michigan State, winless against Ohio State, and quite honestly, it's just not acceptable. But a win over Ohio State changes a lot. Just ask James Franklin. He's just lost 3 in a row. No one's like, get rid of James Franklin, because they won a Big Ten title one year and beat Ohio State,
Yep. Yeah. And the thing is about the Michigan State loss is I get it. I get it with Ohio State. When Harbaugh came here, they were already very, very good. They've built a dynasty. Obviously, if you're going to coach at Michigan, you got to beat Ohio State. They're the main rival. You got to beat Ohio State. But Ohio State's a great team. I understand losing to them. Michigan State at this point, there really is no excuse for Harbaugh to be. I mean, they had a 3-9 season. D'Antonio got ran out of there. New coach. They were atrocious last year. There really is no excuse to be losing to Michigan State at this point.
No, it's
the recruiting for Michigan State better. There's no excuse.
I said before the season that Michigan State, was a must win. I tapered on that a little bit because of what Michigan State's become. And, Mel Tucker's done a fantastic job hitting the portal. He's really turned over that roster. He's got talent. Coach. He's got speed. Obviously, it's not the team that it was last year, but you still lost to them last year at the end of the day, too. Unacceptable. No matter what, COVID year, whatever. I tapered on it a little bit, but again, I'm back with you guys. If you want to argue, that maybe if he doesn't beat Ohio State this year, it's time to move on. You can have that conversation. I'll reevaluate how I feel about that towards the end of the year. But right now, he still hasn't played good football this year, man. And that's, again, disappointing outcome. Super disappointing on Saturday. But it's not like, I said this at the top of the show, it's not like they went out there and laid an egg and didn't play well. And that might even hurt worse for me right now, is that they were prepared. They did go out there and play well, and every single break in the game went against them, and they weren't good enough to overcome that.
I mean, you look back and like you said, I can't think of one break in the game that went Michigan's way. And it wasn't even enough to hold the 16-point lead. The 2-point conversions, just one stop there would have been huge. Couldn't get it. Definitely. I would say that the blowouts sometime are less painful. You don't get your hopes up. Kind of Ohio State in like 2019, I think it was 56-27, the 62-39 game. Those ones didn't hurt as bad as the ones yesterday because you knew that we were going to lose pretty quick. But ones like yesterday that come down to the wire, I think hurt a little bit more.
I agree with you 100%, man. I did not have a good Saturday.
No.
All day. It ruined literally everything for me.
Yeah, it was not fun. I think I told you I was watching in East Lansing and was planning on staying the weekend, and the game ended, and I drove to Chicago to see my girlfriend because I was so upset with the outcome of that game.
And again, don't blame you. You got to do something, man.
Exactly. I'm very glad
that was like 2015. I was, there for that game. I was actually working that game with Fox 17 down in Grand Rapids. And I was I wanted to go like drink afterwards, but like I was so numb to it, everything, that it didn't even have an effect on me. So it wasn't even fun. It was just it's not enjoyable when games like that happen. And why do they always happen against Michigan State? Exactly. I don't understand.
It's the worst.
Oh, man. Well, we move on. The game is over. Still plenty to play for if you're the Michigan Wolverines. And Saturday night is going to tell us a lot, I think, about how the rest of the season is going to shape up. Scotty, where can we find you on social media? What you got going on this week, my man?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Scotty White _. You can give me a follow. I'm at all of the press conferences Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for Michigan. Getting some player and coaches quotes, posting some articles there. So that's where you will find me on social media.
You can find me on Twitter at Luke Ghiardi, LUKEGHIARDI. Subscribe to the YouTube page. We are over 5,000. Really appreciate you guys that have subscribed. Again, we're going to be doing this every Monday night at 7:30. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here in the YouTube comments. For those of you listening on the podcast, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review as well. And if you didn't know, you can come hang out with us every Monday night on the Maize n Brew YouTube page. That's going to do it for us. For Scotty White, I'm Luke Ghiardi. We'll see you next week on Brewcast.